why not see if you can turn that enemy into an ally? So now, as a result of that conversation Willie, Corey, and I had, it's on the Willie D Live channel. You can find it on YouTube. A lot of people were watching. I think it's, like I said, I think it's at 250,000 views in 24 hours. Because people were wondering how this was going to go. I'm sure people were cheering and hoping that me and Corey would just tear each other's heads off. And I said, I don't need to. That's not fun for me. It's not fun to destroy another black man, right? So the point of the matter is to say that these are the cultural battles that I believe that we have to fight as intelligent black people. In a sense that it's a matter of saying, how do we upgrade? How do we upgrade a culture so that it becomes something where we are able to just get what we want? We're able to just do things different. And I think that understanding how to do things different, having the courage to do things different, having the discipline to stick to an approach that is different, that will make all the difference long term. That is the thing that becomes that beautiful elephant in the room that helps you to just elevate at a level that's just higher than everybody else. So let me dig into this. Okay, so let's talk about this, okay? So I'm going to use this analogy today. I don't know how many of you saw. How many of you did see that? How many of you even knew that I was doing the whole airplane thing? I know I talk about it sometimes. I'm not bragging or flexing, but I am excited about it. I don't know. Give me a yes if you were aware, if you've seen any of it. I share the videos because I just think it's fun and it's interesting and it's something new. My wife will not get on the airplane with me yet. I have to talk her into it. But it's something that I've been doing. It's just cool. Anyway, one of the things I had to do today was, in order for me to fly from Louisville to Lexington, I had to create what is called a flight plan. And in this flight plan, I had to get on this app and I had to study every single thing about this flight. I had to look at the weather to make sure there's no thunderstorms coming, no rain clouds, none of that stuff. I had to look at the wind to make sure that I was either not going to go into bad windy conditions, or I was, or at least if I was going to confront the wind, I had to prepare for the wind. Okay, how do I adjust the plane so that I can fly in the wind? When we were flying down there, we were flying with the wind at our back. It made us go faster. When we were flying home, we were flying against the wind, which made us go slower. Also, we had to look at the crosswind, because when you land in an airplane, you have to look at the crosswind. I had to look at the airport that I was landing at. I had to understand. I had to look at a diagram of the Lexington airport. You understand what? Give me a yes if you understand where I'm going with this, because I really want you to understand what it takes for us to plan our community and to plan for us to have the excellence that we deserve. So I had to look at the airport. I had to look at the destination. I had to say, okay, this is the airport. This is the size of the runway. This is how long it is. By the way, it's a big airport, so they had these big fat runways. It was the coolest thing ever. I never landed on a big runway before. And I had to know which runway I was supposed to land on based on the wind, and the conditions. Also, then at that point, you have to do communication. You've got to know which radio frequencies to connect with in your tower that you're leaving, as well as the tower that you're going to go into. And then you had to pick landmarks along the way, benchmarks to tell you if you were on track. Right? We had to look at the map and say, okay, when we get to Shelbyville, we should see that on our left. When we see Frankfurt, that should be on our left also. We should also see this valley. And we looked for these landmarks on the way to tell us that we were going in the right direction, et cetera, and that we were going the right speed. And then we did some other things. We also had to make sure we had enough fuel, right? You have to calculate how much fuel you're going to need. Then you have to calculate things like weight and balance. Make sure your airplane doesn't have too much stuff on it, and that it's properly placed. So because the plane can't fly if it's weighed down. And let me just tell you this. This was so connected in my view. It seems like this is a completely unrelated activity, but let me tell you how God works. God, because I do believe in God. I'm not religious, but I believe in God. God really put me through this journey in a way that I believe helps me really show up better for you, because I said, this is so interesting, because the exact way I'm planning this flight and planning with all these details, that I have to go through these details, right? Because it's required by the FAA. If I don't go through these details, then I can get my license revoked. And I said, imagine if we were planning the success of our families or the success of our community with that same level of precision. Imagine if we really sort of looked at where we are, looked at the obstacles that we have to deal with, looked at the threats that we have to assess, looked at the opportunities that we have. What if we were able to communicate properly with each other? right? Communicate with, I'm communicating with you and you're communicating with each other. We're getting together. We're talking through strategies. We're sharing ideas. That's all economics is a lot of times, is communication. Where there's communication, communication is better for love. Communication is better for economics. Communication is better for friendship. When you saw me do that public display of connection yesterday on that video with Willie D and Corey Holcomb, all that was us using communication as an asset to allow us to build wealth together, because me, Willie, and Corey working together, we're already successful. We're already wealthy, but working together, we become more successful, more wealthy, right? So even communication, believe it or not, is not just a facilitator of success, but it is actually deeply connected to your ability to get things done and to achieve wealth. Communication is everything. Every Sunday, I communicate with my family. I get my girls on a Zoom call, and we get on the Zoom, and all we do is we talk. We don't have a specific agenda. We just talk about what we got going on. What matters to you? What are you thinking about? Where are you trying to get to? What are your obstacles? Where are your opportunities? Right? And in the middle of that communication, what you find is you see greater connection, but you also see opportunities emerge. Like, whoa, wait a minute. So you mean if we set this up and do this and do that, then we can actually turn this into a profitable business, right? So all these things that I was thinking about this morning with the flight plan, is I said, this is interesting. So the more planning I do, the greater my chances of success. So I thought about how when I talk to our girls and I say, if you're picking a man, find out what his plan is. Because if he doesn't have a plan for success, he probably won't be successful, because success doesn't typically happen by accident. If for example, when I got in the airplane this morning, if I had no plan, if I said, what if instead of planning everything meticulously, which I was required to do, what if I just said, I'm just going to let go and let God. I'm just going to get in this plane. I'm going to hope that the weather's okay. I'm just going to fly around in circles, and eventually, hopefully, I'll get to the destination. Maybe the airport I'm flying to. Maybe I won't violate airspace on the way. Maybe I won't make any mistakes. But my chances of success have dropped by 90%. I wouldn't be successful if I just hopped in that plane, decided to take off, and just hope for the best. You have to have a plan. Right? You have to make a plan. And so what I would say to you, give me a yes if you follow this, if we can agree that one of the things that has to really be embedded in our culture is the idea of making plans for our future, right? Planning. You got to plan for those kids. When those children, they talk about some things like Planned Parenthood. That tends to be kind of a certain political ideology of what Planned Parenthood is. But when I think about Planned Parenthood, I'm thinking about sitting down and becoming mindful and meditating on this baby. Right? Even the baby ain't even conceived yet. Baby, they say life begins at conception or not conception. You can decide whatever you want, but I believe that you have the ability to manifest a reality where life begins at conception up here. When you start conceiving of that child, that is when that child has life. That is how I see it. So in my world, life begins at conception, right? Conception mentally, not even physically. Life begins at psychological conception. But again, this is not a political statement, but that's just something I'll say. So in my view, if you're talking about this kid being born and you make a plan and you imagine, you sit and you meditate and you say, okay, this kid is not born yet. One day someone's going to get pregnant and then the baby's going to be born once the baby is here. So we got 5 years, 8 years, 10 years to start investing and preparing for that child. Remember, the greatest asset when it comes to wealth building is time. So in those 5-10 years, we're investing, we're growing, we're building our wealth. So by the time the baby's conceived, the baby's already damn near rich. So then the baby is born, and then we just keep on investing for the child. The child goes through about 20 years of their life where they have no economic consciousness whatsoever. They're not thinking about money. They don't know what money's really used for. Money seems to grow on trees because mom and dad are paying for everything. And then bam, they hit about 2021, and then suddenly they're like, holy crap, I need money. If I don't have money, life is much harder when I don't have money than it is when I do. So at that point, that's when you say, oh, by the way, we've been planning for you for the last 30 years. And here's the plan. And because we've done this, we've executed this plan when you were economically unconscious. Now that you're economically conscious, we can put you in a position where you can be successful. And that was one of the things that I explained to the 23-year-old today. I was telling him, and he wasn't black. You don't have to be black to think this way. You just have to care about your children. You have to care about yourself. You have to want something better for yourself. And I told him, I said, no matter how much money you have, just invest little amounts of money, set it and forget it. And if you start doing that now, then your kids, whenever you have them, they'll never have to work a day in their life. That also will circle back to you because your children will be extremely grateful. They're going to honor their father. They're going to say, oh my gosh, everybody else is struggling. Everybody else is dealing with student loans. Other people say they can't afford to buy a house. We did all of that because dad prepared us for these things, right? So you have to make that plan. So the question is, what is your flight plan? What is your, did you do the work? Are you looking at the destination? Are you thinking through all the obstacles and the variables? You know, I see racism similar to how I see the wind when I'm flying the airplane, right? Racism is sometimes it's like a brick wall. Don't get me wrong. Sometimes it can be terrible, especially if you're positioned poorly. But actually, even in an airplane with wind, wind can either be a bad thing or a good thing depending on how you're positioned. Like for example, when they tell us what runway to land on, the number of the runway tells you which direction the runway is pointing. So runway 18 means it's pointing at the 180 degree direction, which means it's pointed due south. And you're supposed to land into the wind, which makes your plane fly better. So if you know the wind is coming from the south and you land into the wind, then the wind is a wonderful thing, right? But if the wind is coming from behind you or to the side of you, the wind is a bad thing, right? And so I think of racism the same way. If given that racism is out there and is very, very real, well, if I position myself poorly, if I put myself in a situation where I'm trying to operate where I'm not getting the support that I need, like when I was at Syracuse University, the racism was debilitating almost because I'd positioned myself within an institution that had rules and constraints that were connected to a culture that I did not recognize. They had values that were different from my own. So even though I was doing some of the most extraordinary work, I think it was pretty extraordinary, as a black man at Syracuse, they were not able to see that. It was like walking into a place where everybody speaks Chinese and I'm speaking the most beautiful French known to man. If I'm speaking French and everybody speaks Chinese, then no one will value the words that I'm saying in another language, right? So ultimately, thinking carefully, not just about how the world works, but how to position yourself properly. That's another aspect of planning. So I think, because I think that in many cases, what does happen with racism in America, and I see this a lot. I see a lot of frustration amongst a lot of black folks is that the racism's there, but because we don't think about how to position yourself to be away from it, we just end up in these scenarios where we say, well, I just didn't know, nobody told me, or this happened to me and I didn't see it coming. And I think that you do see it coming. And what's one of the keys? Well, one of the keys, again, going back to the whole flight planning analogy, is communication. I think that older people need to communicate with younger people. I think older people need to tell honest stories to young people. Yesterday when I was talking to Willie and Corey, I said, I think that we should talk to young guys and just tell them, like, hey, you got to find a way to resolve your conflicts. If you can do that, then it makes your life a lot easier. You carry around a lot less stress. You're able to collaborate with others and find more success that way. I think that older women should communicate with younger women. Some of the younger women, they don't know nothing about relationships, and they because they never saw it growing up, so they end up coming in, thinking like Cardi B or something, and then and they don't understand why their relationships don't work. Their marriage, nobody wants to marry you because somebody told you to go be, to be this kind of person when that was not conducive to getting men to want to marry you. And then you wonder why that's happening. Well, maybe it's because nobody ever told you what's on the other side of that particular lifestyle. Same thing with men. Same thing can be said about men as well. Young men make mistakes because they don't think they're ever going to get old. So the best way to correct the behavior of a young man who's about to make a mistake is to have them talk to an old man who made those mistakes. The biggest lessons I've ever learned in life were communicated to me by people who made the most mistakes because they paid the highest price. And because their price that they paid was so high, and they told me honestly how high the price was, it made me say, "Ooh, I don't think I want to do that." That's progress. That's better than being distant, secretive, disconnected, not caring, not connecting. One of the main reasons I love talking to young people that will listen. Any young person that will listen, I'll talk to them all day. Is because I'm thinking I've done a lot of dumb things in my life. I've made a lot of mistakes. I hope somebody can benefit from the mistakes that I made. And so I think that just little things like that. So it's really interesting how that analogy of wins and planning and preparing and weather and communication, that I talked about with the flight plan is so similar to what we're dealing with as black people. I think that those of you, in fact, I know for a fact that those of you that have a plan are not going to be hit by racism the way people are who don't have a plan. In fact, I think that one of the tricks of racism in America is to make sure you don't have a plan. Is to make sure that you're as anti-intellectual as possible. They want you to be stupid. They want your men to be unprepared. They want you to be weak. They need you to be weak. They need you to be uninformed. Because people like that are easy to control. It's very hard to control smart people who are courageous, who know what's going on, who know all the secrets, who ain't scared of nothing, who are prepared for you. Like those people are difficult to control. The people that are easy to control, the ones who sort of feel like they're always living life on a banana peel. They're barely getting by, barely slipping through, and can barely make it, and don't know what's happening, kind of being slapped around by the world. So the question I would ask is, what in the world makes us think it's okay for us to put children in that situation? Just to start with one simple example, you live in a society where your ability to obtain money is literally one of the most critical and most defining factors of whether or not you can achieve success and comfort in this space. It doesn't mean you can't be successful and comfortable with it. Without money, it's just much harder to do. Money makes it easier if you know how to apply it the right way. So if I really love my kids and I don't want my kids to suffer, then one of the biggest things that I do for them is I make 100% sure, damn sure, that they know everything there is to know about money. I fully make sure they're prepared, and then I make sure that they have some money. Because if you look at the things that, if you really on a fundamental level look at the things that control and enslave most black people, it's because you're living paycheck to paycheck. So which what does that mean? That means you have no savings, no investments, no capital reserves. You have no reserves. That right there is a huge mistake. That's you're in an incredibly vulnerable, incredibly insecure position. They want you in that position. In fact, let me just tell you a little secret about rich people. After the pandemic, they were very upset that people didn't want to go to work. During the pandemic, what people were doing was they were doing exactly what I knew was going to happen, which is they were sitting at home and they started reflecting on how great life is when you don't have to get up and go to work every day. So people started saying, I don't think I want to go to work. I think I want to, get a hybrid position where I only have to go into the office once a month, or I don't want to go into the office at all. Right? That's what people started saying. So you started seeing rich people billionaires go on the air and say, if you don't go to work, you're lazy. It's un-American to not want to work, right? Well, that's because they need people to do the work for them. They understand the pimp game. They understand how to control the masses. They understand that there are going to be people that are going to be less informed, less capitalized, less aware, and they need those people in order to make the engine of America move forward. And those people will always exist. America will always produce those people. And one of the ways I'm hoping I can be a blessing to you is to make sure that you understand what is required for you to not be one of those people. Where you can easily, the one thing about America is America does have some freedom. It's not a completely free country. There's a lot of censorship. For example, you guys know, you may know, I don't know if you know this or not, but my Instagram got taken down. I have no idea how to get it back. It's just gone, right? Fortunately, we have about 70 platforms, so I'm fine. Like I said, in fact, if you just text the word stop to 31996, that way we can be connected that way as opposed to going through Instagram. And I do have another Instagram. It's the Black Financial Channel. So if you want to follow me on Instagram, just go to the Black Financial Channel, or you can text the word stop to 31996, or you can do both. That way I can send you stock pics and you can follow me on the gram. But anyway, so there's a lot of, because think about it, right? You see rappers, gun-toting rappers that are promoting all kinds of debauchery. They don't get taken down. You see strippers and hookers and the Cardi B types doing whatever they're doing. That doesn't get taken down. But for some reason, a black man who has a PhD who tells the truth about racism and white supremacy gets taken down. That's life. That's going to happen. I know that that's going to occur because I don't think, if I were them, I wouldn't want me to have a voice either. But I think you have to ask yourself, why is it that a gangster rapper is not seen as a threat, but a scholar is seen as a threat? If I'm a rapper and I have rapped about killing and stealing and robbing and drug using and all these other stuff, that's okay. That's acceptable. That makes me cool. But if I'm a scholar who says, I think you owe us about $14 trillion in reparations, and here's exactly why, that suddenly, becomes an issue. I know what the answer is. I'm not even mad about it, but I'm just telling you that that's the country you live in. So America is not a perfect country. We know these things, but I can say America is not a completely imperfect country either. If you chose right now to move your family, kind of off the grid a little bit, not completely off the grid, not completely where they're disconnected from everything, right? If they go to public school, that's fine. If they get a job, that's fine. But just get them psychologically off the grid just enough where your moves and your structure are done in such a way where you avoid the pitfalls that tend to capture the masses. Your life will be immeasurably better than people who don't understand, the people who are just drones and kind of follow the crowd. Some simple examples might be things like just eat it what food you eat. We I think it's been pretty well established that the food and drug industry is pretty much okay. It's not that they're really trying to kill you. It's just they don't care if they kill you. It's not like they're waking up saying, "How do we kill as many people as possible?" If they can make billions of dollars selling something that was healthier, they probably try to do it. But Burger King just tastes so good. Baskin Robbins is so delicious. So ultimately, I was watching TV ads and I just saw all this stuff they were promoting, from Krispy Kreme donuts to McDonald's, and I said, man, all this stuff. I mean, because I just had just come back from the hospital and got cancer and stuff all in our family and all that, and from people that were eating that stuff like their whole life, right? And so here's the thing. They don't ever like require you to do any of those things. Like, nobody makes you eat Popeye's chicken. You don't have to. I haven't eaten. How many of y'all? Give me a yes. Give me a yes if you have not eaten Popeye's chicken in at least 6 months. Give me a yes if you're in that category. I see Kabibi in here. I bet Kabibi ain't eating no Popeyes. Give me a yes. I met Kabibi in Seattle, by the way. This is the new Black Arts West organization. They had me out there in Seattle, and I'm gonna tell you, I love those black people in Seattle. Lord, y'all were just so awesome. And anybody that's in any other city, if you want me to come out and do a training or something like that, we'll work with you, we'll promote it for you, all that stuff. So just email manager@boycewatkins.com. That's manager@boycewatkins.com. Yeah, we went out there and it was totally packed. People were really into it. I had a great time, and I'd love to do this in other cities. So feel free to email manager@boycewatkins.com. Right. So most of you haven't eaten Popeyes, right? So nobody's making you do it. But the thing is, what's happened is they've learned how to hack the human brain. They've learned how to not force you to do something, but to persuade you to do it. And this comes from the fact that capitalist greed has led them to study psychology and how to manipulate your subconscious mind to get you to become addicted to the things that they need you to be addicted to, right? So if they were openly selling crack on TV, guess what? There'd be a whole lot more crackheads out here, right? There'd be a whole lot more people smoking it or whatever. Fortunately, somebody is saying, like, let's make a law saying you can't advertise crack on TV, but they do have those other prescription drugs that they do advertise, and you see what's happening with the opioid crisis, right? So a lot of this stuff, nobody's forcing you to do it, but it happens, right? So here's the thing. Nobody's stopping you from walking away from any of these things. So nobody's stopping you from saying, look, I'm not eating McDonald's and Popeyes. I'm gonna go eat some lettuce and carrots and all this. I'm gonna exercise, right? So then you're walking away from this systematic genocidal capitalist culture that does exist. Capitalism itself is not genocidal and all this, but there is a genocidal aspect because they will sell you poison in order to make a profit. I know how these companies operate, and so being conscious and walking away from that, even as everyone else is walking toward it, is one of the critical elements to living a long, healthy life, right? So the same thing is true with economics. You see everybody going in this direction, the simple direction they go into, and we talked about this before, so I'll quickly rehash it so you understand the process, the procedure, and how they train you, right? They send you to public school. The whole time in public school, you're never really taught how to run businesses and how to invest. You're not even taught a trade anymore. They don't even teach trades anymore. Nobody really talks about the fact that it's the carpenters and the plumbers and the HVAC people that are getting all the best opportunities now. By the way, they have the greatest demand. They're out here just killing the game, right? Much more so than people just with simple bachelor's degrees. Not that bachelor's degrees are bad, but the wrong type of bachelor's degree is a complete waste of your time and your money. So it's all college, college, college. Most of the kids aren't being educated. You're being trained to consume, to spend, spend, spend. Never really been trained to invest and to save and all these. This is just not part of the culture. And so you get to a certain age, you say, oh, look at me, I'm going to go to college. So you go to college, you go $100,000 in debt. And on top of that, you still never learn really how to save and invest. So you have no nest egg, right, to back you up. You also have no skill necessary to grow your wealth. You don't know the things wealthy people know, like investing in real estate or starting businesses, all that. So you become part of that black professional class that ends up with all this debt on the corporate plantation, and you are in financial slavery because you've got to keep going back to work to keep trying to pay off a debt that will never actually be repaid. So you're stuck in this economic purgatory where you're just literally like that old Greek. Anybody ever seen that old Greek statue of the man that's carrying the earth on his back? and he carries it to the top of the hill, and then when he gets to the top, he just rolls down to the bottom. He's got to go back down and pick it up and carry it back up again, like that, and you just do that over and over and over again, and that's when you understand things like Atlas. Thank you very much, Mr. Jan Jasmine. I appreciate that. Atlas, yeah, that's really to me a prototype of what that feels like on the corporate plantation. It explains why the greatest economic scam in America is a job. Student loans and corporate jobs, and to some extent even affirmative action, are three of the biggest economic scams in America. And a lot of it's because the job is the only place that you can work your whole entire life and have less money when you're done than you did when you started. Right? You have a lower net worth than a newborn baby. That's insane. Look, a newborn baby should not have more money than you, especially when the baby ain't did no work. He got fat little legs. He ain't got him gone to no jobs. Has no skill. Didn't get no degrees, but yet he has a higher net worth than you. Something's wrong with that. Well, what's wrong with that is that no one ever gave you that consciousness to kind of get off the grid and say, okay, a lot of people have a lot of economic stress and anxiety because they don't have any sort of financial security. So I'm going to make sure, or somebody will make sure for me, or I'll make sure for somebody else that they have financial security. So for my kids, I'll make sure they have the nest egg because we've been doing the $5 a day investing plan. So my kid has $100,000 in the bank. So they're not sitting around, trying to go rob somebody to get $80 or sleeping with some old fat ugly man so that she can get $200 to pay the rent. She don't have to do these things, right? Because she's in a better position. And then on top of that, we're also not stuck on the corporate plantation because we have jobs, or we have the ability to have the skill required to develop what really is the wealth hack, the biggest economic opportunity in the Black community, and that is infrastructure. That's the big hack. And let me explain like this. This is a revelation I came to this week. I addressed it a little bit earlier, and I'm gonna address it for a couple minutes now. Here's the problem you have, right? If you go around the Black community and you look around and you see you go to a lot of hoods, you don't really see a lot of industry. If you do, it's white-owned companies that have come in to take Black dollars. Typically, it's not Black-owned companies developing this industry. The Black college graduate finishes school and says, I want to work in the Black community. But when he goes back to his old hood, there's no businesses there, no jobs, no nothing that he can really grab onto. So he ends up having to go somewhere else. So you must ask yourself this question: why is it that with all the Black people that we have to go to college, millions and millions of Black women are the most educated group of people on the planet. They go to school more than anybody else. And Black men, there's millions of Black men who are going to school, getting the bachelor's degrees, the MBAs, the JDs, the master's degrees, all these professional degrees, right? We have just so many professionals. If we have all these professionals, and then on top of that, we have all these rappers and stuff who are on magazine covers bragging about how much money they have. Like I saw the rapper Rick Ross, who bragged about how he bought a $20 million watch from Jake the Jeweler. And then I got a call from one of my rapper friends. So I think I'm kind of nervous because I think I might have messed up because I think he's a friend of Rick. So now I think Rick probably said something like, "Hey man, why is this guy dissing me?" That's when I see, that's my problem. I say stuff and then I get in trouble and then people call me and I get I lose friends like that. All I got is y'all as my friends. So I hope y'all don't leave me because anyway. So you got all this, process this, right? You got all these symbolic measures of Black success, these Black celebrities that claim to have all this money and allegedly all this power and influence. You got all these Black professionals who go to college. Why isn't your community built up and built out? I mean, why don't you should have businesses everywhere. You should have industry everywhere. You should have Black automobile manufacturers and shoe manufacturers. And why don't you have all this in your community? Well, you don't have it because Black professionals don't have the skill or the time, and in many cases, not so much even the commitment to actually build that community. To build something, you need people that are actually builders. Professionals aren't really builders. I'm not saying that you're bad if you're a professional, because I'm talking about myself. So don't think I'm making fun of you, okay? I have to make that clear because I don't want anybody to think that, I'm going around telling everybody. It's like the voting thing. When I tell people that they don't have to vote Democrat or Republican, people were wanting to say Dr. Boyce is telling people to vote Republican, and I never ever said that. So the same thing is true here. I'm not saying college is terrible. A lot of y'all went to college. I think that's good. In fact, if you went to college and you liked it, say something, say yes in the chat. If you had a good experience, I had a good experience in college. Nothing wrong with that. But here's the thing. The way our educational system operates, you have to ask yourself, if you need builders in order to build a community, what skills are you picking up that actually teach you how to build and develop something from the ground up? I mean, to build something, think about it, like to build this hotel. I'm staying in a hotel right now. To build this hotel, somebody had to, first of all, they had to start a business. They had to fill out a form for S Corp, LLC, whatever corporation. Somebody had to create the company. I think this building's owned by Hilton, I believe. And Hilton, the Hilton family, they couldn't go, all the Hiltons didn't go get jobs. They said, let's create a hotel brand and let's go buy property around the world, right? Then they had to raise the capital to make the investment. And that required not just access, right? This is again, this is where a little bit of racism can come into play because the white man can print his own money, so it's a little bit tough to compete with him, right? But they had to, somebody had to go raise the money to buy that first hotel, right? And then to build this building itself, you needed people that could you needed an architect to design the building. You needed carpenters to do a lot of the infrastructure work. You need an electrician so that these lights work. You need what else do you need? You need plumbers so that we can use the bathroom during our hotel stay. And there's probably like 50 other types of professionals that you need, many of whom did not learn what they learned on a college campus. They didn't learn what they learned in business school studying business management. They didn't learn it by going to an HBCU and studying history or going to a white university and learning English literature. They didn't. They have an actual skill. They are actual builders, right? So what I'm saying to you is that part of the reason, in my view, that you don't have the development and the building that needs to occur in a Black community is because you have to ask yourself, where are the builders? And then when there are builders, where are they spending their time? Because I do believe that there's a role for the Black professional. Like there's a role for the Black attorney, the Black dentist, the Black lawyer, et cetera. And some of them are actually doing their thing, like Dr. Q, Dr. Q's Fresh Breath Club. Dr. Q is he's speaking at the All Black National Convention. He's a great dentist out of St. Louis, and he's created a Black-owned dental suite of dental products, that are really, really successful. So there are people that are doing their thing, but most Black professionals are not. I mean, ask yourself this question. Give me a yes or no. Do you think that most Black professionals are building Black-owned entities, either as a primary owner, as an investor, or maybe as even as an employee? Would they get up every week and they work 40, 50 hours a week? Are they doing that for Black-owned entities? Are they doing things that for companies that are going to make the Black community more prosperous? No, they're not. They're working at UPS. Maybe we're working at McDonald's. Maybe we're working at Google or something, right? And these are all businesses. So you have two variables there. Number one, you don't have enough builders. Number two, those builders are not applying their time to the project. They're not applying time to the assignment. So in a way, it's like this. Let's go back to the airplane analogy I was giving you earlier. I'm shutting my eyes because I'm meditating on this so I can see this clearly. So imagine so I told you all this morning, I got on an airplane and we flew from Louisville to Lexington, Kentucky. And in order for me to fly that plane, I had to have a pilot's license. We're both pilots. So we had to know how to fly a plane. We had to have access to a plane. We had to have the skill necessary to fly a plane. We had to know how to communicate with the tower. We had to know how to look at the weather reports. We had to know how to figure out the runway structures. We had to figure out the landmarks. We had to make all the flight plans, right? We had to have a specific set of vocational skills I never learned in college. Now, he learned his in college, though, so college ain't all bad, right? But you had to have a certain set of skills to fly that plane. But then, secondly, pay attention. We had to also use the fuel in the plane to fly to the right destination, right? So we made that trip from Louisville to Lexington not just because we had the skill to fly the plane. That's not it, but that's not enough. We had to fly the plane to the destination that we were seeking to get to. If we had gotten to the plane and flew south instead of east, we would have gone to Tennessee, right? And so Black professionals, this is your problem, right? So let's say that Black excellence is a destination. Let's say that Black success is like Lexington, Kentucky. Like let's say that there's a land space we're trying to get to. We're trying to like fly the airplane of Black people. We're trying to fly Black people to the land of success. You got a couple problems. One, first of all, we don't have the airplanes that we need. Two, if we did have the planes, we don't have the pilots that know how to fly them. And then three, when we get the planes and we get the pilots, they're flying in the wrong direction. They're not flying to the land of black excellence. They're flying to the land of white supremacy. What is the land of white supremacy? The land of white supremacy is when you are taking the skill that you have and the success that you have, and you've been indoctrinated to spend all that time and energy building wealth for other communities, making other people rich. I would dare to say that the white community makes at least $2 trillion a year of their gross domestic product from black people and black professionals donating millions of hours of labor and expertise to running their companies. And then we also show up to buy their products that are made by these companies. So this entire economic ecosystem is driven heavily by us. Right? Again, use the analogy with the airplane. If I was getting my airplane from Louisville to Lexington, I had to have access to the plane, I had to know how to fly it, and I had to fly it in the right direction. And so in many cases, you have some of your most highly educated black people who can fly the plane like crazy and fly very quickly, but they're flying in the wrong direction. So that's what I want you to kind of think about in terms of why your community doesn't have the infrastructure that it needs. Ask yourself, who's capable of building that infrastructure and where they at? What are they doing with their time? You know, and so here's the solution. Let me give you a solution on that so you can understand where this is coming from. Solution is very simple. Number one, and we're trying to do this in the Black Business School right now. I had a meeting the other day with some people that I think can help us get this done. We realized that in addition to teaching the skills of like entrepreneurship and business ownership and investing and real estate acquisition and all that, we said, you know, I wonder if we can help create more black electricians and carpenters and plumbers and HVAC people, because there seems to be a lot of opportunity there and a lot of necessity for those skill sets. That's what builders can do. Like builders, you know, if you're building property, building houses, you need somebody who can build a house, right? People that can work with their hands. And then the second piece, to that is to also say, amongst all of us as black professionals, we need those entrepreneurs that don't just have the skill, but have the value system that leads them to be willing to do that longer term ground up work required to build a community. Building something isn't as sexy as just latching on to something that somebody else has already established. You know, it's just not as much fun. You know, it's very rewarding. It's just like like if you and I get it. I understand the temptation. Let me tell you, I'm gonna tell on myself for a minute. You know, when I married my wife, people would ask me, you know, when they were trying to be mean, they'd say, well, why would you marry somebody that's already got 3 kids? And I would tell them, I said, you know, when I was single, I can't lie. There were nice, pretty ladies that I would run across, and they were intelligent black women, and that's just the most awesome thing in the world. And so I was kind of deciding. I said, you know, okay, at some point, I kind of want to pick a wife. So let me just see what's in the world. And I could have had a newborn baby. I really could. I could have just, you know, been like, you know what? I'm Dr. Boyce. They'll understand if I meet some pretty young thing and have a newborn baby. And then I was like, I don't know if I want to do all that work. I don't know if I want to start at age 0. You know, I know Robert De Niro and these guys are 70, 80 years old having kids. I didn't want to have kids at 50. I just felt like that was like, no, that's exhausting. So when I married my wife, her kids are already like, you know, they're young enough to be impressionable, right? I formed great relationships with them, and 2 of them work for me. I'm trying to get the 3rd one to come work for me. I just got to, you know, help her learn how to not be so lazy. But it's like they're young and impressionable enough that I can still have the influence, still form the connection. But they're old enough where I'm like, okay, I only got 5 more years of this. And then we can get y'all up out of this house so we can have some peace again. And so in a way, I get it, right? I think that's what happens when you're talking about building something new. Like if you are a guy who wants to own a professional sports league, to some extent, it feels better to say I own 2% of the Dallas Cowboys than to say I own 100% of the of the Charlotte Buccaneers, right? Some team in some league that nobody's ever heard of, right? But the thing that you don't understand is that there was a point not too many years ago, just a few decades ago, where the Dallas Cowboys were kind of like the Charlotte Buccaneers, or the Charleston Renegades, or some team that nobody ever heard of. Nobody knew what a Chicago Bear was until they made the Chicago Bear into a thing. That's why the Chicago Bears were purchased for about $50, right? And not long ago, a couple of generations ago, they sold the Chicago Bears for about $50. And now the Chicago Bears are worth $4 or $5 billion. In fact, if they were to sell in the market, they probably sell for $5 or $6 billion. So that work of kind of starting from the ground up and building something new, it requires a couple of things. Number one, it requires you to have this thing that is not really celebrated as much, which is this idea that I've shared with you guys before called delayed gratification. People that have that ability to delay their gratification tend to be more successful longer term than others because they're willing to do the work that other people won't do. When I was 26, 27, and I was still in school, and people made fun of me for that because they didn't. My family, nobody stays in school till you're 30. That makes you look like a deadbeat. But I wanted to get my PhD, and my mother told me, she said, if you lay the foundation now for your life, you'll get to live off this for the rest of your life. And she was 100% correct. That's why I'm home right now, being at my mother's side, because she gave me these lessons, and I appreciate that. And also, I remember repeating something to myself that said, if you spend a few years living like nobody else will, you can spend the rest of your life living like nobody else can. So you make the sacrifice early, then the long-term benefits, if you can make this work, are extraordinary. And this is something I would say to any young person that's listening or any older person that's listening. Make the sacrifice now so that later on you or someone that you love will benefit. The second thing that tends to have to happen in order for you to create something new is sometimes God has to give you a blessing in disguise. Sometimes God has to give you a blessing that feels like a curse. Sometimes, in order for you to go for the thing you need, he has to snatch away the thing that you want. Just like in dating, like like if you're in a bad relationship with somebody that you know is not good for you, they're treating you like crap, but you love them anyway, and then they say I'm leaving, and you cry and you beg them to stay, and then they leave anyway, and you're all depressed and sad, and then you meet somebody better, and then later on you realize, wow, if that person hadn't let me go, I wouldn't have been free to meet the person that I'm really supposed to be with. I don't know if anybody's ever gone through that. Am I the only one who's experienced this? I literally have had scenarios where I wanted to send my ex-girlfriend a thank you card. Thank you so much for dumping me because I was too stupid to walk away. So I stood there and held on to your toxic, ridiculous ass. And I never would have met this woman who's not only nicer to me, but she's much prettier than you. Sincerely, Boyce. Right? That's what I would have wrote on the card. Really, not to the point where I'm like, look, I'm so relieved and so happy that you released me that I'm not even mad at you at all. I'm not mad at you at all. Like that's how I feel about Syracuse University. I was mad when I fought with Syracuse and we were going through the whole battle over my tenure and they were giving me grief and making it hard. I was mad at them back then. Now I'm not mad at all. I'm so happy that they pushed me away. I'm so happy we released each other because my life is 100 times better than it ever would have been if I'd stayed in that space. So sometimes you gotta have, I know I'm sounding like a pastor right now in terms of talking about like God's plan, but I do believe in that kind of thing. Like there is the God universe, whatever you want to call it. And sometimes there's just a plan that's bigger than anything you can see for yourself. Like sometimes we are just so limited in our ability to see what we're capable of, and we don't see it until we're forced to go to the limit. You're forced, and it's not natural for you to put yourself in these uncomfortable situations. So life kind of does it, and then when it just naturally happens, you say, "Wow, I didn't know I could pull that off." And next thing you know, you're operating at level 10 when you never would have got past level 4 if things had been made comfortable. So honestly, I'm not going to say that I am appreciative of racism. I'm not going to sit here and do something ridiculous like thank the white man for being such a jerk to me or denying me opportunities. I'm not that crazy. But I am going to say that, racism really built me into the man that I am now. Racism made me great. It was one of the things that made me strong. It was me knowing that I was rejected from the comfortable space that led me to have the initiative to go and build a much better space for myself. Do you understand what I'm saying? Do you get what I'm saying? I want to make sure that's understood, right? Because I don't want everybody going around saying, Dr. Boyce said racism is good. No, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that everything has a bright side. That's what I'm saying to you. And so when you think about things like affirmative action being, they just pretty much just nixed affirmative action. They just murdered it in broad daylight. Um, I think that honestly, the end of affirmative action could literally lead to a renaissance of black excellence, unlike anything we've seen since the 1950s. I really expect and believe that when black people learn that these people are not your friends, when black people learn that they're really not gonna give you the big piece of chicken, like when we really learn like that they're only gonna let us have so many opportunities before they shut everything down. I think by realizing that, that's when we're gonna blow the roof off the building. I think that's when we say, okay, you know what? Screw that. I'm not gonna waste my time chasing these dead end opportunities anyway. In these environments, I mean, affirmative action. We know what affirmative action did. It was helping white women. White women were benefiting from it more than you were. So now it's like, okay, now that you've made it clear. You ever had that where you think somebody don't like you, but you're not sure, so you're kind of going back and forth, and then they say something, and you're like, oh, now that you've made it clear that we're not friends, now I can really go off on your ass. Now I can really unleash the beast because before I wasn't sure, now I'm sure, and I think that with the end of affirmative action, they're making 100% abundantly clear, we don't have your back. We do not understand your plight. We do not care about what is allegedly owed to you. Um, let's let the chips fall where they may. And I think that understanding the world in that way, like I can tell you, when I gained clarity on what whiteness and so-called racism ended up really looking like, and that racism doesn't disappear just because you went to school. It doesn't disappear just because you got the fancy job. It doesn't disappear just because I had the PhD. Like once I kind of realized that, I was like, oh, okay, so everything you were telling me is a big old lie. Like you fed me a false black American dream. And now that I see it, now that I know what it is, I can operate accordingly. Because I really think a lot of black people fall for the false, those stupid corporate diversity statements. We believe in diversity and inclusion and opportunity for everyone, regardless of race, religion. As soon as affirmative action ended, they started firing all these diversity and inclusion executives. Like it was crazy. Like immediately, like the next day, they're like, "Okay, you can get your ass out of here. We can stop pretending now because we don't have to do this anymore." Right? And maybe one day they're going to be required to do it again. But at that point, the thing is, I want you to still make sure you have what you need because remember, laws can be taken away. They can change the law and say, "Oh yeah, we're going to make this thing for black people," and then they just vote, or they get a new Supreme Court, and then they say, "Oh, the law's gone now," right? Because think about this: the same people who ended affirmative action are part of the same government that created it. Just like in and I learned I was watching this long documentary about the Vietnam War, and I was so fascinated about it because the Vietnam War had such a huge effect on my father. And by the way, shout out to all the veterans. I just have so much respect for you for your sacrifice, and I'll always say that every chance I get. And I watched this documentary about the Vietnam War and how Saigon basically just fell. Like I mean, people getting shot in the street and heads chopped off and everything because they believed that the United States, they believed that this white man had their backs, and they were giving them weapons and military support. And then suddenly they just decided, oh, we don't want to do it no more, and they just stopped supporting the people in southern Vietnam. So at that point, the Viet Cong came down and were killing everybody, killing entire families. Because they're like, oh, now your American benefactors are gone, and this happens all throughout the world. This is not so that's what I thought about. I thought about the fall of Saigon when I saw the fall of affirmative action. I said, okay, so you have let them put you on these training wheels to make you believe that they have your back. They've made you falsely believe that they are going to support you, and now that that's gone, what are you going to do now, right? So do me a favor. I gotta plug my laptop in. So give me 1 second to do that. Let's take a quick bathroom break or something. And also, or if you want to get on your phone and you can text stock to 31996, and I'll send you the AI stocks and the $5 a day investing plan, the training on how to make money without working, as well as some other things, some other resources for you. So do that, and while I plug in my laptop, it'll take me 1 second to do that. See, boys, you gotta plug in your laptop, man. Sorry, y'all. I was rushing back from dinner, so I forgot to plug up. But I'm gonna plug it in, Oh, okay, come on, laptop. Am I charging? There we go. Okay. All right. Okay, I think we're good now. I think we're good. All right. Thank you for your patience. I appreciate that very much. All right. So, what I want to do is we've been kind of flirting with these last few pages of Powernomics. Yeah, you talk 31996. So that's two nines, Willis. 31996. And the word is stock. Text stock to 31996. All right. So, one of the things I want to finish reading. Remember, we're almost done with Powernomics, and after that, I want to jump into the Black History Reader. I want to go through every single one of Dr. Claude Anderson's books because I think that all of us as Black people need to know this man's wisdom. And I really want us, and I gotta call him this week. I haven't called him for a couple weeks, but I really need us to also give him his flowers and everything now. Like really, just cement his legacy as much as we can. And because I just love him and have so much admiration for him and appreciation for him for writing this book, Powernomics. I think I look at Powernomics as the Bible for Black economics in this country. And I also like that word power, because when you show up with power, when you show up with a desire to accumulate power and a commitment to maintaining and defending that power, people look at you different. People are going to treat you different. I think that we don't get respect we deserve because they don't see us as a powerful people. And I would encourage you not to let them put you in that victim box, in that victim disabled box, because that's not a long-term win for you. So I'm gonna just read action step number 9 on page 243. I'm just gonna start right there. And he was talking about some things that Black churches can do to benefit the Black community from a Powernomics standpoint. I'll read through the action steps very quickly, and then I'll read number 9 in detail. He says, number 1, churches should incorporate a new focus around Black people, the original people. Number 2, develop and instill a group code of conduct. Number 3, build a Black elite alliance across religious denominations. So no matter what your denomination is, you need to be B1 Black first. Number 4, teach Black economic prosperity. Number 5, operate the church as an educational and instruction center. Because remember, the church is a natural economy. It's a natural gathering spot for education. James Wilson, one of the students in the Black Business School, sent me a note today about how he's got everybody in his church learning stock options right now. He took our stock options class, and he wanted to use the curriculum. I said absolutely, and he's now teaching his whole church. And I said I have so much admiration for you because this is exactly what church leaders need to do. So don't be afraid. Remember, in every church, you should have every church should be economically sophisticated. Like not just economically capable, but I mean sophisticated in terms of understanding things. The Mormon church, did anybody see that story about how the Mormon church, literally, they found out that the Mormon church, now mind you, this is a church that used to not have any money, by the way. They used to be broker than y'all. They were broker than y'all. I got to look up the story. Let me see if I can find it so I can make sure I say the headline right. The Mormon church, they had a bunch of hidden money, and because they didn't tell anybody, it was $100 billion that they had hidden away. The Mormon church literally had invested and raised $100 billion that nobody knew about. Like you talk about G's moving in silence. That ain't G's moving in silence, and that ain't even M's moving in silence. That's B's moving in silence. B for billion. Right? They don't have M's in their bank account. They have B's in their bank account, and those B's were buzzing. $100 with a B that the Mormon Church had that they were hiding that nobody knew about. And so in my view, I think all churches should be economically sophisticated because everybody in your congregation has money in their pocket. Everybody in the congregation has a desire to do better economically. Everybody in the congregation is committed to the purpose. That's why they come to church. And also, I encourage you to have some grace in terms of how judgmental we might become with churches, because every church is not the same. There are thousands of Black churches across the country. Some of them are inappropriate. Some of them have the scammers. We know these things, right? But remember, churches cost money to run. And I know that there are people who think pastors should all be in poverty and that the church shouldn't get any of their money. And I'm not saying the church should get all of your money. I think that you should take care of yourself first, and I think you can do the Lord's work anywhere, not just in a building. But remember that if your pastor, if you do go to church and your pastor gives you something of value to you, like if you get, whether it's spiritual renewal or whatever it is, why not compensate that person for giving you something of value? Think about it. If you go to a comedy show and that comedian makes you laugh, is that comedy show going to be free? Or is it going to cost you $20 or $30 to get in there? And maybe you have to buy a couple of drinks in order to be in the room, right? Is that a crime? Did they rob you? Did they steal from you? Does that make them scammers? No, they're not scammers. They said, look, hey, you don't have to be here, but if you come in and you enjoy the show, we'd like to charge you something so that we can do other shows, right? So to some extent, I think that there should be a little grace shown toward churches and how they operate, even if you don't attend. And I think that the churches themselves should really understand the enormous power and opportunity that comes with having something like that. Like when I see a church, I see a campus. I see a place that could literally be everything from an educational center to a movie studio to a place where people gather for sports, spiritual renewal, investing, training on all levels. The church could replace damn near every institution that exists in society. Really, between churches and families, you don't really need a lot of corporations and schools and all that stuff, right? So again, if that's your thing and you're into that, I say if you're into it, do it at a high level. Get that training. All right. So action step number 6 is use the church to attract and hold wealth. The church is one of the few places where wealth is aggregated in the Black community. Before integration, Black people had at least 4 key institutions. We had businesses, schools, churches, and families. We lost our businesses because we traded our businesses in for student loans and corporate jobs. We lost our schools because we started sending our kids to public schools where they don't educate the kids properly at all. And Black people can't even get jobs at these schools doing the things that are going to be best for our children. If they are hired, they have to pursue somebody else's agenda. They can't pursue their own. The family has been destroyed through things like drugs and all this other stuff. And so the church was that fourth and last institution that did survive. And so I really think those churches should be protected for that reason. Number 7, establish church-based lending programs. So any place that you aggregate capital can form as a bank. Your family can have its own bank. Our family has its own bank. We have some capital sitting to the side. If anybody runs into a financial problem, as long as you're trustworthy, as long as you have paid the money back before, we will give you a loan. If you have an investment opportunity. So out of this family bank that we have, one of my children bought a house with money that she borrowed from the family bank, and I required her to pay it back, right? So effectively, anytime you aggregate resources, you can have a bank. Action step number 8 is to provide social and community services. Very important. I was just in Seattle where, unfortunately, a lot of Seattle, like a lot of cities, has just fallen to absolute crap. There's homelessness everywhere. It's like a Gotham City, some parts of it. Seattle is the only city where I've gone to. I went there a year and a half ago with my daughter. It's the only time in recent history I went to a place where I got into a situation where I thought I felt unsafe. I felt like I would end up having to hurt somebody because you ain't gonna mess with my kids, and it involved a really aggressive person on the street. And a lot of this started during the pandemic, where where people were saying things like defund the police. I believe in reforming the police. I don't believe in defunding the police because you need police, the good cops anyway. And so anyway, long story short, a lot of these cities have fallen apart. There have been a ton of issues in terms of the homelessness, the drugs, the zombies walking up and down the streets now. And what's interesting, here's one thing that people don't talk about, and they reflect on this a little bit in that show, The Godfather of Harlem, is that one of the only groups I've ever seen that can really bring people back from the dead in terms of drugs and everything else is the Nation of Islam. Like the Nation of Islam, I think should be really acknowledged for the fact that they've been able to really take people that were almost wasted by society and looked at as people that can never be redeemed, and not just get them back to normal, but really make them extraordinary people. I love when I go anywhere I go, when I see the brothers walking up with the bow ties and everything, I instantly know that I'm gonna be, respected, received, protected, welcomed. I'm talking about I go around the world and all the brothers in the nation, because I've been in the final call so many times. Almost all of them end up knowing who I am, and they are just I just haven't had a bad experience there, you know. And I just love that because and I think that should be studied, right? I think there should be scholars in black-owned institutions really studying this kind of thing. And I know that you have scholars within the nation that can explain these things, like Dr. Wesley Muhammad, stuff like that. And I think that even if you're not interested in joining, I think that's fine. You know, I'm not a member of the nation, but even if you don't join, I think we should study this because this is black excellence, on a type of black excellence. You know, and so I think that in terms of the establishment of social services and community services, I think churches are extremely important in our community, because I don't think anybody's going to care about our people but us. And then he says action step number 9 is to establish a network of protective organizations. Based upon the historical treatment of black people in this country and around the world, black Americans need a national organization or network of secret societies whose sole purpose would be to protect black people from physical and political economic abuse. The need for such organizations are included under religion because the majority of society's organizations, whether it's the Ku Klux Klan, the Knights of the Camellia, Black Horse Brigade, or simply the ultra-right-wing moral majority, all had direct church links. They all laid claims to some religious dogma to justify the society's commitments to protecting their people and their way of life. On the government side, the majority of society uses agencies such as the FBI to maintain the status quo for the power elite. As an outside group in the current status quo, blacks need to establish organizations similar to those established by Jews, such as the American Jewish Congress. The mission of this organization is to, 1, safeguard the welfare and security of Jews in the United States, Israel, and throughout the world. 2, to strengthen the basic principles of pluralism as the best defense against anti-Semitism and other forms of bigotry. And 3, enhance the quality of American Jewish life. Note that these organizations are very specific about who they are supporting and protecting. They say nothing about all denominations or minority religions. Unlike black civil rights organizations, Jewish organizations make no pretense about their priority for their own group. So this is interesting how he contrasts this Jewish organization and how they unapologetically say, we are here to safeguard the welfare and security of Jewish people in the U.S., Israel, and around the world, strengthen the basic forms of pluralism as the best defense against anti-Semitism, and enhance the quality of American Jewish life. Right? So what's fascinating is that I want you to compare and contrast that to what happens when we say, okay, we have an organization where the goal is to protect black people or to support black people or to enhance quality of life for black people. Like, for example, the All Black National Convention. Just to give you an example, there was a black-owned hotel in D.C. that we reached out to talk about having the convention at this hotel because we were looking for a black-owned hotel to do the convention with. And this hotel, at first, they had plenty of space. They had plenty of options and possibilities. And then when we told them that we're hosting the All Black National Convention, suddenly they had no space. And we're like, oh, well, when are you going to have space available? They said, oh, in 2 years, we'll have space available in the year 2026 or 2025, or it was something crazy like that. And so here you had a black-owned entity that I believe, my opinion was that they walked away from the fact that our convention was called the All Black National Convention. And so I wonder if they would have had the same reaction if it were the the Anti-Defamation League or what is the American Jewish Congress. If it were the American Jewish Congress, I wonder if they would have said, nah, we don't want the stigma of being hanging out with all these Jewish people. I don't think that would have happened, right? So effectively, there is a stigma that is attached to being black, which to me necessitates the importance of us finding ways to work together, stick together, and unapologetically support each other. I put the word black in a lot of the things we do because I just want to make it clear. It doesn't mean we exclude anybody or hate anybody. It just means we're just not here for everybody. We're here to be black first. And if you want to contribute to that somehow, we'll let you contribute in certain ways. But for the most part, we need to focus. If you go to the hospital and you have a heart problem, you need a specialist. You don't need a general practitioner doing heart surgery. We have a heart problem. We have a significant problem that requires specialists. We need black specialists who focus on black issues, who are drilling into what's really going on with black families, what's going on with black wealth. And there's an army of you out there. There's so many people. I've met so many black therapists and so many black doctors and so many black attorneys and everything else. And all that needs to happen now is you need the institutional infrastructure to allow us to aggregate that. Right? And so we're trying to do our part at the convention, at the All Black National Convention. It's going to happen October 20th through 22nd in Atlanta. We've worked extremely hard all year and put up hundreds of thousands of dollars to bring together over 40 black experts in a multitude of areas. We have black people that are experts on politics, black people that are experts on business, black people that are experts on therapy, black people that are experts on relationships, black people that are experts on investing, anything you want to do. Plus, it's just a great family reunion. So if you'd like to learn more about the convention or you're thinking about coming this year, I hope you'll come to Atlanta. Just go to allblacknationalconvention.com and you can take a look and you can kind of see some of what's in place. And anybody who's been there before, if you're in the chat and you've been to the convention, I hope you'll say something real quick and let everybody know how much fun it is and how great it is, because I want everybody to know how great it is. Okay. You'll be speaking there. Good. All right. Awesome. Yeah, we opened up our speaking pool where we allow people to apply. If you applied and you didn't get in this year, just know we just had so many applicants, so we couldn't accept everybody. But there's always next year, so keep trying. And also, if you want to be a vendor and sell you have a business, you want to sell your product there are plenty of people there that are prepared to buy black. Also, if you want to be a sponsor, we'll market you. On this platform, I'll talk about the sponsors, things like that. So you can feel free to do business with us in any way that you see fit. Okay, so let me keep reading here. So Dr. Anderson says here on page 243 of Powernomics, his website is powernomics.com. He says, after more than 4 centuries of slavery and Jim Crow semi-slavery, Black Americans have both the justification and motivation for such security organizations, even more so than Jews. Every population has not only a right but an obligation to protect itself. Therefore, Black America should have a national organization or network of organizations to, 1, function as a research and policy organization that analyzes and interprets political and economic issues for Black America. 2, overtly provides information and advocacy for key Black communities throughout the United States, Caribbean islands, Brazil, and sub-Saharan African nations. 3, monitors and raises awareness of Black Americans about the activities of anti-Black and terrorist groups. 4, challenges immigration laws that are closed and make Black Americans a permanent minority. I wonder if talking about the immigration laws is what got me banned on Instagram. I'm kind of wondering if that's what got, because I was reading what Dr. Anderson wrote about how immigration laws don't help Black people, and there's a real strong belief that wide open borders is just good for everybody. And I wonder if it's either that or when I said that affirmative action mostly benefits white women. I think it's one of those two things, because that's what happens. People target and they just start reporting you, and then next thing you know, Facebook bans you, and that's just life. You live with it. But I think that's probably what took place. But anyway, like I said, my new Instagram is the Black Financial Channel, so feel free to follow me over there, and you can talk to me, send me notes and stuff like that. All right, so let's see here. Number 5, encourage political dialogue and economic alliances between all dispersed African Blacks. That's interesting. I saw Dick Gregory. It's page 243, Kathy. I saw something where Dick Gregory said something about Malcolm X and how Malcolm got killed. And one thing that he said was, I don't remember the guy's name, but he said that there was a guy who introduced Malcolm to Pan-Africanism, that he helped Malcolm to understand the importance of forming connections and alliances around the world, and then taking racism to the steps of the United Nations. And he said that at the same time that Malcolm was getting shot down in New York, this other brother was getting killed in Nairobi around the same time. And he claims that was part of what was what happened with Malcolm's death. DePinto, thank you very much, Jermaine. Yeah, DePinto. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not an expert on him, but I thought that was really interesting. I think everyone should kind of know about that. All right, so let's see here. Number 6, challenge the dissemination of slavery and Jim Crow semi-slavery revisionism in print and electronic media. So when they start lying in the books, we should speak truth. And this is why we read Powernomics every week, because we know the public school is going to be teaching the wrong stuff. So let's teach the right stuff. We can do this. Number 7, identify and expose liberal and conservative Sambos whose activities endanger Black people. Similar defense organizations need to be established in all Black nations. And 8, Black America needs a monitoring organization that tracks right-wing conservative organizations and reports their activities to every level of Black America. The suggested organizations ought to be religious-based and supported by the combined efforts of Black churches and Black businesses. Conclusion. It is great. I think we're at the end of the book. Look at this. We've been reading this book for like a year. Holy crap. The conclusion is that churches in America helped to establish a foundation that supported slavery. Black churches were established to keep blacks pacified and under control. But like those early independent ministers who used their churches to help their people escape slavery, Powernomics calls on those religious organizations to be agents of change to empower Black America today. Many religions are represented in Black communities, and there is a role for all of them. Powernomics does not ask that religious differences be set aside. It asks instead that we work together on common ground to establish and strengthen communities. In doing so, we strengthen ourselves and the Black religious organizations to which we belong. The many roles for churches presented here are suggestions based upon our need, history, and analysis of issues. Church leaders have to work together to fine-tune these suggestions and shape them so that they are practical. Some are functions in which churches should take the lead. Other functions are ones in which the churches should work cooperatively with other institutions. Not all churches will venture from their comfortable niches to work toward this vision, but there will be many rewards for those who do. So here is, I'm going to read Dr. Anderson's epilogue in the book, and this will be the last piece of Powernomics we're going to read. And then next week, we're going to start on the Black History Reader. And that also can be found at powernomics.com. This book is like, holy crap. Like, you can open this book on any page, and he will tell you something about Black history that you did not learn, that you never learned in school. And so if you want to learn real history of our people, that book is it. I think your kids should read this book before they read any other history book. He says here, Powernomics is a missing link between the historical analysis of the problems facing Black America and the strategies needed to resolve those problems. My drive to understand why Black people live such difficult lives and are portrayed and mistreated by all elements of society is personal. God has assigned me to a skin color team, but I do not like to be on a losing team. Me either. That's why Dr. Claude Anderson is like a father to me. I love him. I want Black people all over the earth to live healthy, comfortable, and enjoyable lives. Black people are so marginalized that most of them spend every waking hour of their lives aware of their Blackness, always on guard and alert for the traps, pitfalls, and threats they must avoid to survive and perhaps get a few steps ahead. After 19 generations, Black people deserve to enjoy life, and they deserve justice. To fashion solutions that lead to those outcomes, I researched and analyzed historical facts that lead to these outcomes. Historical facts and current events to identify those factors that are injurious to Blacks. Then I drew from my background and experience to design Powernomics. As a practical matter, Powernomics starts where we are as a society. I know that Black people have made this country strong. I also understand that racism is so embedded in our system that rightly or wrongly, we will have to change our own reality, and our actions will only work if they are race specific. Some from other races will help, but no other group will take up our cause. But this is our country, and this is where we must make our stand. I hope the reader understands that for Blacks to challenge the concepts of immigration, minority, diversity, and multicultural does not mean that we are against other groups. It does not mean that we expect concentric circles of justice and that the people who built this country, Black people, should be at the center of the circle. We are the nation's oldest and most patriotic population group. 99% of all Black people who were here before 99% of all other population groups arrived. 99% of all Black people were here before 99% of all other population groups arrived. Think about that. Process that. 99% of Black people were here before 99% of other people got here. So you were here first. What is owed to us has never been acknowledged nor paid. We are the people who built the foundation of the greatest country on earth. We should receive the benefits of our work and that of our ancestors before those benefits are extended to newcomers. Powernomics was written with the fervent desire that with a plan, Black people who see the problem will work together toward a new vision and change reality for themselves and their children. Now that the plan has been presented, those who want purposeful change will have to make a substantial intellectual investment. Purposeful change will require reading, critical thinking, and careful evaluation. We must understand the underlying reasons for the problem in order to design solutions that will take us where we need to go. Those who make that intellectual investment and accept the challenge of change will become the new leaders. This book was not written for those who do not see a problem. Powernomics is offered as a start, a beginning point for those who are ready to begin. Black people will have to be careful. There will come those who want to maintain the status quo and will try to lead Blacks the wrong way. They may adopt some of the Powernomics principles for use or use the language, concepts, and suggested activities to promote a colorblind or race-neutral society, excuse me, I'm choking, or to extend, hold on, wait, I lost my word in here. They may adopt some of the Powernomics principles or use the language, concepts, and suggested activities to promote a colorblind or race-neutral society or to extend the concept to everybody. They will intentionally seek to mislead, confuse, and sidetrack Black people, just as some did during the Civil Rights Movement. They will use the same words but attach their own meaning, objectives, and target populations. Black people will have to be intellectually vigilant to recognize the tricksters. Some will be white and some will be blacks who do not choose to be black and do not accept the vision of an empowered Black America. Some will be conservative and others will be liberal. Their intent will be the same: to thwart change. Writing this book was my moral responsibility and commitment to help resolve the nation's long-standing racial problem. This book was written out of love for my people and the hope that Black people will change their own reality. Those who read this book have a choice to be moved to action or entertained. May you glean something positive from this book and put it to good use. It is important to note that Powernomics is a term that is trademarked. The Powernomics Corporation of America Incorporated will allow only those whose efforts reflect the specific set of principles presented in this book to use the term Powernomics. And Dr. Claude Anderson gives us the right in the Black Business School to use that term because we deeply believe in the Powernomics philosophy. If you believe in the philosophy, then I hope that you will make sure that your children and your family are introduced to Powernomics concepts. That's very basic. There's some very simple ideas that you can share, and get them copies of these books. Let them know this is what you represent. When me and my wife got married, we gave away copies of Powernomics to everybody at the wedding. We did not accept any wedding gifts. We did not let people send us money. We said, we're fine, we're blessed, we're good. We gave away gifts, and we said, let us give you something instead. And so we gave everybody at the wedding a copy of Powernomics. And so what I just really hope we can do as we walk out of here for this week is really start thinking about what we talked about in the beginning. Make your plan. What is your flight plan? How are you going to go from where we are to the land of Black excellence? So just like I made the plan, we loaded up the airplane. We had to make sure we had the right weight and balance. Any dead weight got thrown off the plane because we needed the plane to fly. We decided what altitude we mapped out our location. We made sure we had our fuel. We communicated properly, and we also made a plan in terms of exactly which direction we need to go, how fast we need to go, and exactly the way we need to fly. So what I want you to do is I want you to fly. I want you to fly high. I want your children to fly, and I need them to understand the importance of getting rid of dead weight. I need them to understand the importance of making a plan. I want them to understand what the destination looks like. You have to visualize that before you get there. And I believe that people who think this way in the Black community become the most successful people on the planet. I really believe that. I believe that when you are as excellent as you can be, can't nobody stop you, and you achieve a level of greatness that other people can't even match. So it was great to see everybody. God bless you. Next Wednesday night at 8:30, we will begin. This is our second book we completed. We completed Black Labor, White Wealth, and then we completed Powernomics. I think we've been doing book club for maybe about three years now, something like that. We're going to keep on going. The next book will be The Black History Reader. All of Dr. Anderson's books can be found at powernomics.com. Also, a reminder, if you want to get ready for the convention, we are going to sell out. We're going to run out of tickets because we only want maybe 700 people. We don't want anything bigger than that because I don't want a gigantic convention. I want a family reunion style atmosphere. So you can go to All Black National Convention if you want to lock in. We're going to be at the Marriott Marquis October 20th. And also to get that free information I told you about the $5 a day investing plan and the other stuff I was going to send you, just text the word stock to 31996, and that way we can stay connected. And of course, my Instagram is the Black Financial Channel, and maybe I'll get the old one back, maybe not. I don't even care. I'm going to keep going regardless. So God bless you, everybody. Have a good night. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. I appreciate you, and I'll see you guys next week. Take care now. Bye-bye.